So thank you. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everybody, for being back with us. Like I said, I'll just try to help maneuver the time here. So just a quick overall of what this session is about. We are delighted to have Angela Walker, our vice presidential nominee, join us, as well as Lisa Savage from Maine, who will say a few things about her amazing campaign. But the way we'll structure it is, at first, I'd like to invite Ashley Frame to say a couple of words about her experience working on a national campaign and working directly with Angela. And then she will introduce Angela. Angela will share with us her perspective on the left unity. Then we will have Lisa Savage join us and talk about her experience and her campaign in Maine. And after that, I'll come back and I will try to introduce and just introduce you to those 2020 candidates, our amazing California candidates. And we'll start with Emmanuel Estrada and then invite all the other candidates who are on the call to say a few words about their campaign. So that's why we could use a little bit of organizing around our many amazing speakers. So I'd like to invite Ashley Frame, our own Green from Sacramento, who's worked on the amazing national campaign. Are you on, Ashley?
This is Laura. I don't see her name.
Okay. I'm hoping she's able to use the link to join us, but maybe we can come back to Ashley before we invite our California candidates. So Greg, go ahead and please welcome Angela. I'm just double checking to make sure Angela's joined us already.
Yeah, I saw Angela's name, so I will introduce Angela. Angela was born and raised in Milwaukee to a working class Black family. In high school, she and other Black students petitioned for and received an African American history class at their predominantly white school. In 1993, after the birth of her daughter, they moved to Jacksonville, Florida, and in 2000, she traveled to Tallahassee to protest widespread discrepancies with the ballots in the election, and later participated in actions against the war in Iraq, in New York, and Washington, D.C. In 2009, she moved back to Milwaukee and 2 years later joined the protests against Governor Scott Walker's attacks on unions, after which she was appointed to become legislative director for the local chapter of the Amalgamated Transit Union. In 2014, she ran as a socialist candidate for Milwaukee Sheriff, and in 2016, she was the vice presidential candidate for the Socialist Party USA. In late 2016, after the organization she was working for, Wisconsin Jobs Now, folded, she moved to South Carolina to regroup. Angela Walker is the mother of one and the grandmother of 5. She's a fierce advocate for the rights of Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, the LGBTQIA community, labor, and the earth itself. Please welcome our vice presidential candidate, Angela Walker.
Hi, everybody. First off, it is an honor for me to be here with you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for, it's always really interesting when somebody reads like your bio and it's like, dang, I really did all that. And yeah, my grandkid count is going up by 2. So I'm about to be a grandmother of 7. So yeah, it's really an honor to be here with you all today. And I don't want to like jaw your ears off or anything like that. If you, my understanding is, do y'all have any questions? I think I was one of the things that you honor me. Y'all are amazing. Just thinking about left unity and the importance of that going forward, that was one of the biggest things that we campaigned on. It was a part of our campaign, Howie and I's campaign, that I was really excited about, for the simple fact that we need a left in the United States. We have absolutely got to have a left. and we've got whisperings and murmurings and people doing things. But as far as a united left, we gotta build that bad boy. And what party is better positioned to be a major voice in that, an architect and helping build that than the Green Party? I mean, we really are poised to do this. We've got the name recognition, even though, going by this election, you wouldn't think it in the United States, but people do know who we are. We've got folks everywhere. And, I understand that we're not a monolith as a party. Everybody in this party is not a socialist. Everyone is not, everybody doesn't think the same way. So even within our own party, it's just recognizing, we're not all a monolith and we don't need to be, but where are the places that we intersect? And as a party, where are the places with other parties that we intersect? We're not all gonna hold hands and sing Kumbaya. No one is expecting that. But what we do need to do is find these places where we can help each other, because at the end of the day, our people need us. They need us. People are facing evictions. It's projected to be worse in January. People are going to be hungry over this holiday season and beyond it. COVID is absolutely unpredictable. I have 2 best friends right now who are waiting on their test results. I've got one of my best friends who not long ago recovered from it. This thing is real and it is unpredictable. We don't know, with the intersection of COVID and then the flu season, we don't know what to expect. And we still do not have medical infrastructure in this country to take care of our people. And this incoming administration ain't even talking about it. They're not even thinking about it, which is absolutely unconscionable. And then you've got folks celebrating like they actually, we accomplished something, and you don't always want to be the party pooper in the room saying, yo, we ain't won shit. Let me just tell y'all, we won nothing with this election. You move one regime out and another one in, and at the end of the day, cash poor and working people are still not getting anything. So I say that to say, other than being severely pissed about it, I say that to say our people need us. And the message of the Green Party about not only lifting up the needs of human beings, but doing so and working for justice for people in the frame of also working at the same time for ecological justice for this home that we all share. Because she is important. This planet is important. She is not a commodity. And I think, with the fires on the West Coast and then, in the Gulf, hurricane after hurricane after hurricane this year, people who have been trying to act like climate change is not something that should be prioritized cannot play that game anymore. So, I'm gonna get off my soapbox, but at the end of the day, our people need us. And as a party, I would argue there is no party that is more poised when it comes to uniting ecological issues with justice for human beings and also for non-human life than the Green Party. So I thank y'all for having me.
Okay, Naseem, are you going to introduce the next presenter?
Please go ahead.
Okay, well, I thought that you said that there were some other people to address this subject. Isn't that? You're unmute. Naseem, you got to unmute.
Greg, I did see a hand raised for a second. It was Justin.
Well, I'm confused because I thought Naseem was going to facilitate this portion of it, because I don't know any of other speakers except that Naseem had some people lined up. So
okay.
So just to clarify, our next speaker is Lisa Savage. I am wondering if she has joined us already, but awesome. And we would love to hear from her about her campaign. And afterwards, I'll come back and hopefully we'll have Ashley Frame back with us so that she can talk about her involvement with the national campaign. And then we will have our California 2020 candidates who ran this, in November. So I'll come back to introduce them. Please, if you'd like to introduce Lisa, not that she needs much of an introduction for all of us, go ahead, Greg.
Okay, well, Lisa Savage, as folks know, was the candidate in Maine, initially with the Green Party, and the technicality she had to run as an independent. And this was the first, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the very first ranked choice voting in a US Senate race. And I'll just turn it over to Lisa and let her explain more about this. Lisa Savage.
Thanks, Greg. Can you hear me okay, everybody?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, yeah, and thank you, Nasim, and thank you, Angela, and everyone who is here today. Thanks for having me. I will correct you, Greg. It was not the first Senate election with ranked choice voting, because the previous election when Angus King, the independent, who's the junior senator from Maine, ran for re-election, ranked choice voting was in play. However, he won a majority in the first round, as did the incumbent in my race, Susan Collins, squeaked out 51%. So ranked choice voting did not kick in, but that election was also conducted under ranked choice voting. There has been a congressional election in the 2nd district of Maine, the part where I live that is more northerly and a much more low income part of Maine. The election that the first time that Jared Golden was elected, he's a Democrat. The incumbent was Bruce Poliquin, and ranked choice voting, there were 2 independent candidates who polled high enough, and their number 2s all went to the Democrats. So Jared Golden took the seat from the incumbent in 2018. So we were very disappointed, of course, that ranked choice voting did not kick in. All the polls had showed that the incumbent Susan Collins was deeply unpopular, but they had also showed a big percentage of undecideds. And one of the kind of sad things about this election in Maine is that the Trump administration worked super hard to turn out voters because they really wanted the electoral college vote from Maine's 2nd district. They had gotten it the first time around when Trump was elected originally, and Maine is one of 2 states that split our electoral votes. So if you win in the 2nd district, you can pick up that 1 vote. And they did again pick up that 1 vote. But the effect that it had on our race, we feel, was that they turned out a lot of voters. They did a lot of, they sent people to hold a lot of unmasked in-person rallies, like Pence came and the Trump sons came, Trump himself came at one point, and they did get their voters out to the polls. And while those voters were there, they voted for Collins too. That's not why they had turned out, but they had voted for Collins before. This was her 5th term she was running for. And the other independent on the ballot was a fellow named Max Lynn. If you watched any of the debates, he kind of put on a clown show, cut up masks, did all kinds of silly things. He was to the right of Susan Collins and a big Trump supporter, but people didn't seem to take him very seriously. So he didn't, I don't think many people that might have voted for an alternative to Collins did go for Max Lynn. It didn't seem like very many of them did. So yeah, our campaign, I can't thank you enough. California Greens in particular, but really Greens nationwide, for all the support, financial support, moral support, encouragement. Many of you organized meet and greets. The one about a year ago now, it wasn't quite a year ago, it was around over the Christmas holidays, December holidays last year, that Greg organized in Oakland, where I am right now, was amazing. And we just really felt the love and the interest that people had in our campaign to not only show what ranked choice voting could do potentially, but try to put a Green in the US Senate. I did have to unenroll to gain ballot access. In Maine, the rules for third parties to gain ballot access are very, very stringent. And we tried it that way as long as we could afford to. And then as we neared the deadline and realized we were putting in about an hour in the field to get 1 signature of a registered Green voter. It was a Super Tuesday year. Maine doesn't usually have a Super Tuesday primary, but they did this year. So a lot of people that were registered green that we had on our list as green had registered Dem because they wanted to vote for Bernie in that primary. And just Maine is geographically big. It was ice storm season. One of our key volunteers literally slipped on ice and fell all the way down a flight of stairs during that period. And we were averaging 1 signature an hour. So as we got to about the 900 mark, we needed 2,000 by March 15th. And our ballot access coordinator said, Lisa, you're going to have to unenroll. If you run independent, I can get you on the ballot in 1 day. On Super Tuesday, we can stand outside the polls and collect signatures from any registered voter. And I was like, we're not getting him in 1 day, but lo and behold, he was right. We got more than twice as many as we needed. And that was luckily pre-pandemic, because then the pandemic shut down all the town clerks that are supposed to certify that those are registered voters. So in the end, we turned in 5,000 some odd signatures. We needed 4,000 to get on. And we did not have a single signature from the city of Portland, Maine's biggest city, Maine's really only big city. No signatures because their town clerk had shut down early and stayed shut down. So the challenge of the campaign was definitely the pandemic. For a long time, fundraising dried up. For a long time, we didn't do anything in person. Everything was remote. As time went by, definitely fundraising got back to not only the previous level, but we ended up with a really good fundraising director who just, really helped us out. And we ended up raising about $190,000 over the course of a long year, a year and a couple months, which is unprecedented for a green campaign in Maine, even for a congressional campaign. That's pretty good fundraising. But the US Senate race that we were in, of course, had tens of millions of dollars dumped into it, both by the candidates themselves. The Democrat that they ran against the incumbent was Speaker of the Maine House, a very centrist corporate Democrat named Sarah Gideon. She did not have very high name recognition. She had not done a lot in Maine prior to serving as Speaker of the House. She kind of had her claim to fame was standing up to Paul LePage, who was our Tea Party governor that we had for a couple terms that was very unpopular. But she was originally from Rhode Island, hadn't lived in Maine a super long time, didn't come across really as an authentic Mainer. She seemed like kind of an urban East Coast person, and that didn't play well with voters. And that was basically, she ran on, I'm not Susan Collins. Biden ran on, I'm not Donald Trump, but that's a lot more compelling of an argument than I'm not Susan Collins. And then Collins ran on, I bring home the bacon. The reason you have 6,000 jobs in Maine is I bring home those Navy warship contracts to Bath Iron Works. And of course, the reason that National Greens had recruited me to run was that I had spent years with a conversion campaign saying, let's put a Green New Deal in, let's stop building warships, which are terrible for the climate. Let's build something to mitigate climate change or, really address our greenhouse gas emissions. And it will create more jobs too, way more jobs, according to economist research. So our base was definitely the peace and social justice activists in Maine, older like me, many of them retired, and they got us started, and it's a lot of financial support, a lot of logistical support. And then as the campaign developed, we got a lot more young people coming in who were struggling economically. The pandemic disrupted their schooling, their lives, and they had been, many of them, Bernie had been volunteers on Bernie's campaign. So we had a clear and compelling message about Medicare for all, demilitarized Green New Deal, solve the student debt crisis, forgive student debt, and make public higher education debt-free, and a host of other, progressive issues that were very appealing to that electorate. So in the end, we got 5% of the vote in the first round. That was a raw amount of about 40,000 votes. And to me, the most compelling metric of the results of the election are that we spent under $5 per vote. Our campaign was the most efficient at spending under $5 per vote. The other independents spent about $35 for each vote he got. Susan Collins spent about $65 for each vote she got, and the Democrats spent over $200 for each vote that she got. Of course, people called us, still a spoiler. People still told me I had no right to run. I was just going to get Collins reelected again. But it was very clear to us that so many voters in Maine had no idea how ranked choice voting worked, which races it applied to, and the fact that you can only win by a majority under Maine's ranked choice voting system. So if you took the votes that Sarah Getty and the Democrat got, added the votes that I got, and even the other independent who's to the right of Collins, it still didn't add up to a majority. So it doesn't take any votes away from Susan Collins to, rank me first, rank the Democrat second. We did decide, we reached out to the Democrat through our campaign managers early on and said, do you want to do preference swapping? Because we had done some reading and some research. An academic in Australia that had studied ranked choice voting said that preference swapping is pretty common there among candidates that are similar, and it's worth 10 to 20% bonus of a number of eventual votes to do that. So we thought we should try that. But they wouldn't even talk to us. They never would ever say the words ranked choice voting. So the Democrat and the Republican ran as if it were a two-person race. There was no ranked choice voting in play, and they just basically ignored the presence of the other two names on the ballot. They didn't want a preference swap with us, but after a lot of internal discussion, we decided it was still to our advantage to do like rank Lisa first and then vote blue number 2 message to our supporters, because we wanted to be perceived as being on the get rid of Susan Collins team because she was unpopular. And we certainly didn't want people to think, oh, this is just a vanity project. And, all we're going to do is keep the Democrat from winning. We really didn't. We didn't want to be perceived that way, and that wasn't what we were in it for. So in the end, the Democrat ran a really weak campaign. She never had any people from Maine on her communications team, and that really showed. It was like a DC funded, DC strategy, DC comms strategy, and it just didn't play well in Maine. Super a lot of negative advertising, calling each other names, telling lies about each other. And in the 4 debates that I was in, the 2 of them would just do that. They would go into their talking points. They would start lying about each other. They would get extra time to rebut what the other had said. And then when it was my turn to speak, I would try to answer the question and talk about policy. The other independent would put on a clown show and cut up masks. So at one point after the first debate, someone wrote to me and said, I'm sorry you had to share the stage with 2 puppets and a clown. We got a huge amount of positive feedback on the debates. Like, you're like a real person who's actually talking about issues. I totally, you've changed my mind. I'm a believer now. They kept us out of the 5th debate, and that was a Hearst television affiliate, ABC affiliate. They had been planning to do that from the start, and we got 2,600 people to sign a petition saying, let Lisa debate. And we went down to the station that night and tried to get in. Still didn't work. But some people have theorized that the 4th debate was held by Zoom because Susan Collins was back in the Senate. And my team decided to give my closing statement to a Black Lives Matter organizer in Portland, Maine. She's a former Somali refugee, Hamdia Ahmed, and she's a organizer for Black Lives Matter for some years, like first college graduate in her family, and just a really great spokesperson. And so I introduced her and then stepped aside. I was doing it from a hotel room in downtown Portland, and she stepped in and gave the closing statement. Some people said, oh, that's why you didn't get in the 5th debate, but actually that decision had been made long before that. And I certainly don't regret giving some space to marginalized voice for a national audience. That debate was on C-SPAN, as was the first one. So it was a really good team experience. Our team worked super well together. We had people from other countries on the team. Mostly it was done remotely. Many of us weren't in Maine, even if we couldn't really get together that often. And our first volunteer celebration after Super Tuesday got canceled by the pandemic. And then we were just about to hold our final volunteer celebration.
Lisa,
Audio.
do we still have audio? Just checking in on time.
Some
Lisa?
facilitated decision making. Yes?
You were breaking up a little bit, and I just wanted to check in on time because we want to make sure that we can take a couple of questions for both you and Angela. And we do want to hear from our candidates as well. But it does appear like, both you and Angela are talking about, even though, with your strategies of left unity, it's still actually is not enough for us to rely on that, and all the other organizational and outreach efforts are going to be needed to go with that. We're still trying to get Ashley back, but I wanted to move on to introduce some of our amazing candidates who ran this November and won. But I just heard back that unfortunately Emmanuel Estrada isn't able to join us. Just wanted to go through and start asking all of our candidates who did run in November. If you are with us, please raise your hands and I can just introduce you, give an idea about your race, and then have actually about how the election went, and then have you speak a couple of minutes about your campaign. We can keep it to 2 to 3 minutes, I think, or maybe 2 minutes about your message, about how to, how you found your campaign and what was your take-home message. And then after we hear from you, we'll go back and take a couple of questions. We have a couple of folks who are on stack, which we should remember. I believe Chanel and Randy are on stack, but we're going to go and hear from our candidates first. If Emmanuel joins at any given time, if anybody notices him in our participants list, please give a heads up to me, Karen, Greg, just so that we can hear from him as well. I would like to invite actually David Grover from Trinidad City Council. He was an incumbent in Humboldt County who won his election, and I'd love to invite him to share with us his perspective. He actually got 77% of the vote, first of 2 seats. So, David, please join us.
Okay, am I coming through visually yet? I don't see my, okay, my camera just turned on and apparently you can hear me. That looks okay. So yeah, I want to thank, special thanks to Meredith or Mimi Newton for asking me to run as a Green. It's been a total learning experience and better than I could have imagined. The like-minded people that I've run into. A couple qualifiers. I received my degree from HSU last year in environmental science and policy, and it looks like I'm gonna be real busy here because it's exactly what we need. And I'm so glad that everyone feels the same way about the new administration come in, because the fight's definitely not over. I'm still stressing every day because of what's happened. But a little bit more about my campaign. I did have a Trump supporter running against me. The actual percentage was 79.6, just to clarify that for statistical purposes. We're trying to figure out who the 32 people were that voted for the guy. But one of the things that was helpful was it was kind of a protest, because there was kind of a mandate against what's been going on. To the average people that don't live policy, they're only hearing little bits and pieces. So I'm really grateful to our presidential candidate and vice candidate that what they were talking about grassroots movements now. It gives me a little guidance and direction, what I can do with my 2 years that I still have left during this term. I'm really going to advocate for the Surrey Ancestral Society to get back some land that's literally my backyard, which overviews the ocean. There's a little stretch of land there that's actually sacred burial grounds. I'd like to see them have that again. Other things are energy independence and things like that for Trinidad. I'm getting more into that. So I want to thank everyone, their support, the Humboldt County Greens and the North Coast People's Alliance, because they supported me through that too. So they both gave me endorsements, which was helpful. The League of Women Voters did invite for a Q&A. I didn't get to do that because my opponent refused to do anything virtually politically. So I don't know how that's going to work in the future, but so it was kind of easy. So it might seem like a big win, but it wasn't as much effort as maybe I would have liked. But the whole experience has been great. So I think that's about 2 minutes, and I'm looking forward to working with people. I did mention at the beginning, David Cobb asked me to be the alternate. So in some instances, I may be able to represent Humboldt, but I will probably participate anyways because I don't mind being the alternate. Gives you the heads up. We have so much going on now and into the future. So thank you again, everyone.
David, and congratulations again. I was hoping that we can get Audra Walton on the call. I'm not sure if she is on the call. She was on and then fell off. Audra, are you with us?
I'm here. Hi.
Hi, please
Hi,
share
hi.
with us some words about your campaign.
So I'm sad I was gonna borrow some format from other candidates as they spoke on this. So my campaign was a lot of fun. I think I'm gonna borrow Dr. Jill Stein's sort of language there with respect to being tricked into running. I was told I was told that yay, Angela, I was told that there was a Republican running for the seat and no one running against him for a seat that a progressive Democrat had been holding, but then was going to be running for supervisor, which she ran, or she won that campaign. Yeah, so they tricked me. He was a Democrat and he won, and he was also a Democrat that had been a vice principal and a teacher in my district. So let's see. For me, I think what worked was having my information on Voters Edge, and I think that was a perfect alternative to having a website of my own. Having jumped in so late into the game, because I registered, I got there 10 minutes before closing time. And so, yay, it was a lot. I ran a mostly digital campaign, Facebook ads, thank you, Nassim. And I went live a lot. I went live from a lot of events that we were at. And before that, I was already active in my community. So I think that was probably something that really assisted my ability to capture that many votes. It really was surprising and shocking, especially with respect to my opposition. The other fella that I was running against was the local NAACP's chapter's attorney for a few moments of his lifetime. So I beat him. Yeah. Right. So I'm not sure if I think I've covered, I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Audra.
you.
Congratulations on your first time running. And actually, I didn't mention the numbers. You got 2,384 votes as of last count at 20%, over 20% of the vote. Thank you very much. I wanted to check in and invite Brandon Johnson next from Marin County. Please share with us. Oh, is that me? Please share a few words about your campaign. Brandon actually was third out of 5 candidates for 2 seats, and he got over 16,000 votes at 16% of the district.
How's it going? Thank you for the introduction, and thank you all for having me. It's nice to be in a room full of greens here. It's really, really nice. Yeah, my race was for my local school board, is the Tamalpais Union High School District School Board in Marin County, California. Predominantly white community, very, very wealthy community. And we were running a campaign on anti-racism, on equity, on making sure that we have a sustainable district as well, make sure that our district is doing our part with our 5,000 plus students. And so my message was that if education isn't setting students up to engage with the issues of power structures, of social justice, and of the issues involving the environment, then our educational system is doing something wrong. And what I felt like we needed to do is certainly get students involved and make sure that students, and certainly marginalized people as well, are able to not only just be included in the space, but be decision makers and help to co-create the space. And so, I thought that it wasn't enough just to close the achievement gap, because if we're achieving in a system that is harmful to us and harmful to our society, then what we need to do is in fact change that system entirely with the voices and with the input of folks that are closest to the experiences that affect them. So it was a really fun race. It was my very first time running for anything. Like others, it sounds like I decided, I think the filing was August 7th. I decided like August 6th, because we just came to the conclusion, myself as an activist, that we need folks in the rooms where the decisions are made. We need votes, essentially, to get things done. So we came sort of in that runner-up position. There's two folks that got in, both were incumbents, and so we came in that next slot. But it was great. We got a lot of enthusiasm, and I think that the school board is a great place to expose people to Greens. I was running as a proud Green, and I think that if you give students, if you let them know that option, and certainly they ask a lot of questions as to, oh, why are you Green instead of Dem, and you have that opportunity to open up that conversation. And once you open up that conversation and they hear the solutions that the Green Party has for the problems that they will be facing, it's a compelling argument to them. I think they're extremely receptive. So I think that's something that the Green Party, space that the Green Party needs to be in is really focusing on those students and that next crop of voters. I just think that they're with it. They're extremely knowledgeable, and I think they're extremely sympathetic to the message. So it was good. What we did a lot, obviously, it was a challenge with the pandemic. Very, very different race, I think, than in past years, but that gave us an opportunity to rock social media. And so I think you have to go to where folks are, especially the younger folks. And so we also did a lot of live stuff. And yeah, it was a really powerful experience. Obviously met a lot of really great people that are doing outstanding work in the community, forged some alliances. But yeah, I think as we move forward, if we're focusing on the youth, making sure that we are relevant to their experience and rocking social media, I think that'll put us in a good position going forward.
Thank you very much. That is awesome. I think I had Jake with a raised hand, but he fell off. So next I'm going to go to Connor Gorman. Just so you guys know, Connor ran for Davis City Council District 5. He got third out of 4 candidates for 1 seat with 720 votes. That's 16% for a first-time campaign. Woohoo! Go ahead, Connor. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'm Connor. I ran for Davis City Council. We are now actually up to 798 votes, which is still 16%, but nonetheless, a new batch came in on Friday. And yeah, it was a very interesting experience. So certainly the pandemic made it a bit stranger than usual, though there were some unexpected benefits of it. For instance, because all of the forums and things were virtual, I was able to have a timer going during timed questions, which is something that you obviously wouldn't have in real life. All you would have is the cue cards. But we did do some physical canvassing. We used door hangers because we were told by some immunology grad students that it was safe if done right with social distancing and masks. So some of that happened as well, where the door hangers were meant to be left for people who are not comfortable opening up. And then, like others have said, social media was a big aspect of the campaign as well, especially Facebook and Instagram ads. We certainly use them. And I also think I saw more for other candidates than I have in any like past Davis elections. So that was a fairly big thing this year. But we ran, as some of the other candidates have mentioned, to really promote the idea of grassroots organizing and of the needs of the community, especially the most marginalized in the community. Something Davis is really pushing for right now is restructuring public safety by taking funding away from policing and putting it into a separate department with services like mental health crisis response and homelessness outreach and those types of things. So that and housing were my two big platform points. And those are things that we're going to continue to work on, even though I ended up getting third out of fourth. And I do think that's something that we as Greens should really be devoting a lot of energy to. Local races, as well as local grassroots campaigns with direct action and directly pressuring those who are in power.
Thank you so much, Connor. I think we have Jake back, so we're gonna go to Jake next. I am very proud of Jake. He's in my county and I work with this amazing campaign. He was second out of 4 candidates in the primary. He got 7,596 votes. It was 28% of the vote in the primary in March. That forced a runoff to November, and he became again second out of 2 candidates for the 1 seat with 20,000, almost 20,700 votes. That was 46% of the total vote in our district. So Jake, if you're on, please share with us a few words about your campaign.
Can you guys hear me okay? Hopefully.
Yeah. We can hear you.
Cool. Thank you. It's a little windy here, so. But yeah, thank you, Naseem. We had a super exciting campaign where we raised about $180,000. So we did everything from door knocking in the primary to sending out mail, social media. Really didn't have a choice but to pull out every stop in order to beat a very conservative incumbent in a very wealthy district for the city of San Jose. Unfortunately, we were really close, but did not quite win this seat. We ended up having about $1 million in independent expenditures come out either against me as a candidate or in support of the incumbent, which was a very interesting perspective as well. Despite the fact that we were running against an incumbent, even the positive messaging about the incumbent was why they were not Jake, and particularly centered around our ability to upzone in the city of San Jose and build affordable housing, tax net. Nothing to do with the city, but my support of Proposition 15 and other tax policies that I think would benefit us as a community when used correctly. And then again on defunding the police, we walked a very difficult line in a conservative district with very progressive values, and it almost worked. I mean, at one point we were considered to be the front runner ahead in the polls until a bunch of the independent expenditure money started to come in. So very excited about what we were able to do, and including build lots of coalitions with Greens and Democrats and labor unions. I had the endorsement of the AFL-CIO, South Bay Labor Council, had support, which is like a soft endorsement from a couple of key Democratic clubs within the Santa Clara County Democratic Party, as well as a bunch of elected officials. So we were really able to take a progressive message forward and put that first and foremost, and got a lot of support for doing so. So very excited. Again, didn't quite get the victory, but there's a lot of room for us to grow in the future here. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Jake. Appreciate it. I'm just going to make another call for any of our November 22 candidates who might be on the call to please raise your hand. We still have 59 participants, so I may miss you unless you raise your hand and come to the top. There's Steve. Steve Breedlove, please join us. Steve ran for Chico City Council in District 3 in Butte County. He became third out of 3 candidates for 1 seat with 1,530 votes, 18% for a first-time candidate. Thank you, Steve. Go ahead.
Let's see if I could start my video. Hello, I'm Steve Breedlove. I ran for Chico City Council District 3 here in the city of Chico, a city that has been devastated by the Camp Fire and then the Bear Fire earlier this year. And is under pretty intense gentrification pressure as, spillover from the Bay Area. And with that, I ran what I thought was the campaign I wanted to run. Obviously, didn't have the result that I was hoping for. I structured it around 6 platform planks I called the Real Solution Series. I talked about safe communities, lean, people-centered budget, secure and affordable housing, strong local economy, a lot of that around food. And then homelessness and addiction issues and habitable future, which is, climate change and transitioning to a post-carbon economy. I did over 20 hours of policy. I structured it. Mondays, I did a Take Back the Power Hour where I talked to policy experts on, had represented as a Prop 15, Prop 21, public banking, folks about decriminalization of homelessness, addiction services, as well as defunding the police. And then I did Beers with Breedlove as like an Ask Me Anything on Fridays. And I did a Garden Side Chat, which is more philosophical, like where my policy expertise and opinions come from on Wednesday afternoons. I did not prioritize fundraising. That's probably one of my bigger mistakes. I hate asking people for money, and I'm a fiscal conservative, like in my own personal life. And so I hated asking people for money, and I really wanted to not spend a lot of money on my campaign. I wound up spending less than $1,200, thanks to everybody who donated to me from within the Green Party, and thanks also for your, moral support as well. But I spent less than $1,200, got 18% of the vote, running against a 16-year incumbent who spent about $30,000, and then against, frankly, a Christian fascist who was supported by what I call the Fash PAC, anti-homeless political action committee funded by developers and property owner interests. And she had, between her money and the PAC money, had almost $100,000 spent on her versus my $1,200, and the incumbent spent about 30 grand. I faced a lot of obstruction from Democratic Party. I participated in every forum and every union endorsement process. I was only able to secure endorsements from left-wing grassroots organizations, Green Party local, of course, Sunrise Movement local, the DSA local, as well as the California Progressive Alliance, which was pretty rad. And so, we didn't really set the terrain of the election, and that sucks. I was running on a platform of decriminalization. And for about the year leading up to the election, the Fash PAC had really come to dominate social media space and frame the election around homelessness and a needle exchange program that was very short-lived here. And in our district, it was actually favorable for center, left, and left. And it turned out that about 1 in 5 to 1 in 6 registered Democrats voted for basically a candidate who's young, has zero experience, never had a job, dropped out of college, was in Navy ROTC and dropped out of that. And she was just a really great candidate for other folks to run her campaign and spend money on her. And the agenda was set by other folks. And I was unwilling to compromise in how I ran my campaign and what I was campaigning on, which is that we need to have sanctioned camps and decriminalize homelessness as the only humane solution to deal with what is ultimately a structural economic problem. So I'm glad that I ran. It was brutal. I hated it. I probably won't do it again, but it was fun. And, you know, elections are ultimately context specific. So people are going to succeed in some realms where others won't on the same exact agenda, platform, money, etc. So anyway, thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much, Steve. I saw Angela vigorously shaking her head. Was that a quick comment you wanted to say in response to Steve, Angela?
I'm so in solidarity with everything you just said, Steve. Like I felt everything you just said, like in my soul. I hate campaigning. I hate asking people for money. It is brutal and it is vicious. So I'm with you.
Thank you so much. So I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if there are any other candidates who would like to talk about the run in November, please raise your hand, let us know, say stack, so we'll get to you. This has left us about a half hour for any remaining candidates, and then to take a couple of questions and circle back with Lisa and Angela as well after they've heard about our candidates. So I see Robin with your raised hands, and Chris Richardson had a raised hand. If you'd like a comment, if you can make those quick, then we'll circle back with comments and questions for Angela and Lisa. Go ahead, Robin.
Well, I'm a candidate. Do you not want to hear my candidate presentation?
Yeah, go ahead.
You said comment.
No,
I've got more than a comment. Should I go into it?
Absolutely. Let me also introduce you, just in case you don't cover it. Robin ran for Beverly Hills Unified School District in Los Angeles County. He was 7th out of 7 candidates for 3 seats, but got 2,323 votes. That was 7.6% of the vote. Again, I think only your second campaign. So please share with us some comments about your campaign.
Thank you, Nancy. My name is Robin S. Rowe. My website is robinsrowe.com. I'm a research scientist. I'd never belonged to any party until I joined the Green Party a year ago. When there's a call for volunteers, I always volunteer. So I've learned a lot by being an active participant in the past year. My website at robinsrowe.com has a lot of policy on it. I'm very science driven. I've run twice as a Green candidate in Beverly Hills. Both were elections this year, one in March, one in November. I run on anti-pollution, public transportation, affordable housing, and public health. In my run for mayor, I got 5% of the vote. I needed 25% to win, but that's a respectable showing for a first-time candidate. In my run for school board, I got 8% of the vote, but needed 18% to win. So I'm making progress, but I still have ways to go. I'm unique as a candidate because I do not accept donations. I will not ask you for donations. I will not accept donations if you send them to me. I do not seek endorsements, and I boycott Facebook. So I'm working to break the by the election political system in Beverly Hills. So a lot of things that people do in traditional politics, that people tell me I absolutely must do, I cannot do because it is against the essence of why I'm running. If I run that way, I might as well be any of the other candidates on the ballot because that's what they're doing. So let me tell you about Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills, we have weekly, enthusiastic, huge Trump rallies. They bust them in. They're rowdy, obnoxious people who don't believe in masking and all that, and drive around in circles in their SUVs and polluting vehicles, honking for all of Saturday morning. I live in the only district in Los Angeles to vote Trump in 2016. Democrats are our leading party here, and yet we voted Trump. Trump's biggest donor lives here, so this is the heart of Trump land. Trump comes here to raise funds to run the Republican Party. There are almost no green voters in my district. There are less than 30 Greens out of 22,000 voters. So it's 1 in 1,000 Green voters here. So I've done very well to do as much as I've done, considering that there is no Green voter base here. I'm a GPLAC delegate, SGA delegate, ECHO Action Committee member, and an elector. I've tried to join the Finance Committee, the Budget Committee, the Election Reform Committee, and the Peace Committee, but I was turned away. The Election Reform Committee doesn't actually meet, so they couldn't have me join. I also applied to join the Lavender Caucus, and I offered to host the General Assembly Convention in LA before COVID happened and shut all that down. I applied to be a 2020 Green presidential candidate for the primary, but I wasn't permitted to run. What else? That's the main thing. That's my bit. RobinSRowe.com.
Thank you very much, Robin. Let's go to Chris. I believe we have a long stack, maybe in chat, that maybe Karen and Greg can help with. So if there are no other candidates, I think Chris Richardson has had his hand raised for a while. So I'll slip out and turn it back to our facilitators. Thank you.
So Greg, I don't know if you've got the stack. I've been taking a list if you want me to just call names. So I'm gonna call the stack that I have, and if you're not on the list, speak up and then we'll add you in. I've got Chanel, Randy, Dave, was it Grove? Laura and Robin, but Robin, I don't know if you were just trying to get on stack or if you were just wanting to give the presentation you just gave.
Yeah, we just did me. Thanks.
Okay. So then I've got Chanel, Randy, Dave, and Lauren. Yeah, Chris cannot hear you, correct? Chris, are you trying to speak?
Hang on. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, were you trying to
Can
get
you
on
hear me
stack?
now?
Yes, were you trying to get on stack?
I was on the stack. I was on the stack for a long time. Hello. Okay, I ran for
No,
Congress.
wait, you're not first though. Chanel, I believe, is first. So I'm gonna just.
Oh, for Christ's sake, I've been on the stack the longest. Go ahead.
I think there's a mic confusion. Chris, you wanted to talk about your run in the primary, right? Was that why you were on stage?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, turning it back to
It's only for.
to Nasim then to introduce you.
Okay, fine.
I want to
Nasim, you're still muted.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. I ran for Congress in the 7th District, and I was running against 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And one of the things I did was contact the League of Women Voters and arrange a debate between us. And I tried to get the local newspaper and the local, television stations to cover it. And they said, well, is Ami Bera going to be there? And I said, no, he's in Washington trying to impeach Trump. And they said, no, we're not interested. But you can get an awful lot of visibility if you can get at least the contenders running to be on the ballot, on the debate. And that can get you some coverage. Now, one of the things that I did is I brought along my own camera, expecting the League of Women Voters to have done that, and they did not. But I had someone up in the stands actually film it, and we processed it and turned it into a Green Party presentation of the debate. So that was a way of getting us visibility and coverage. It wasn't a whole lot, but it was at least something. Too loud. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can tone it down. It's either too loud or not at all. Okay, but that was mostly it. It was just that it's very important to get visibility, and the League of Women Voters is there. They are available if you can reach them. And I suspect that you should probably try and reach them if you can, and it will get you some visibility. Okay, thank you. Bye.
So Nasim, is that right that we're done with candidates? Okay. So Greg, I don't know if you wanted to pick up on stack or if you wanted me to run with that.
Go ahead since you have it. I don't have that.
Okay. Chatted it to you. We've got Chanel has been waiting quite a while.
It's fine. I've got a question for Lisa.
Can you be louder, Chanel?
Can you hear me okay?
Not really.
Oh, okay, I fixed. Oops, hold on. What the hell? Hold on. One moment. I fixed. Can you hear me now? Okay, cool. So my question was for Lisa, but I also wanted to give shout out to Emmanuel Estrada. He's not here right now, probably because he got a prep for like being mayor. But my boy managed to get like 54% on $8,000, 2,000 of his own, and then 6,000 from donations. And I'm just over here looking at the math like, oh my God. So while he really wants to be here, I understand if he can't, because like they're starting that process where they teach you how to do the mayor stuff. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is that made it so he's not here. But I just like wanted to take the time to give my man his roses on that one because that was amazing. But my question for Lisa, who I have like the utmost respect for, like you are amazing. I just kind of wonder how do you, with the known fact that Gideon was an extremely corporate candidate, with the known fact that she was essentially someone that was going to use this massive, like, I don't know what you call it right now, like treasure chest of money to be a corporate piece of crap. Did you guys have to go so hard on the concept of ranking her second? Like, cause I mean, it seemed like you could have voted to blue number 2 a little softer because you're that much better of a candidate. Maybe that's just how I see things, because I couldn't imagine being someone that wanted to vote for you and also voting for Sarah Gideon, but maybe that's just me though. How do you balance the fact that how do you balance the fact that there was a low-key advertisement component for Sarah Gideon in this type of campaign that had to be ran because of the ranked choice voting? Because that's something that like I've always been afraid of, because I've seen it like backfire in like internal committee elections even. Over.
Sure, thanks for the question. It's a good one. And we discussed it internally a lot before we came out with it. It may be useful for me to say, I was trying to win the election. And under ranked choice voting, I didn't think that I had a strong chance to do it, but I thought I had a chance to do it. And so if I didn't court Democratic voters, there was no chance that I would get elected. There are a lot of independents in Maine. It's like about a third of the electorate is not registered with either party, but most of them are pretty conservative. Most of them are essentially libertarians, many of them anyway. And so we just knew that in order to get those #1 rankings that would keep us in the running and keep us from being the last person on the list, if it went to the runoff rounds, that we would have to turn some progressive Democrats our way. And I had no interest in helping Sarah Gideon get elected whatsoever, but the way that the ballot fell out was like, me there on the left as the only progressive. I was the only one that wanted Medicare for all, the only one that wanted a demilitarized Green New Deal. Then you had Sarah Gideon going, well, I want to make healthcare a little more accessible and a little more affordable. And her climate plan was like build more roads and save the beach houses. Then you had Susan Collins, then you had somebody to the right of Susan Collins. So we really wanted the #1 ranking from people who were then going to go ahead and make their safety vote and vote blue #2. So that was the thinking behind that strategy. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you for clearing that up, because oof, I looked at the other race and I was like, oof. I just was sad because there was a second person that would have made more sense, but Sarah Gideon happened. So thank you so much for your run.
All right, thanks for that question, Chanel. So next on stack, I've got Laura Wells, and then after Laura, Orlando. And if you were on stack before and I didn't call you, please, at this point, chat me and I'll see it. Thank you.
Okay,
Laura,
well,
you're up.
It's perfect to follow the question and answer that just happened. I live in Oakland, and it is one of 4 communities that has had ranked choice voting at the city level for about 15 years. And before that time, we actually had electeds who were Greens, and since then, we don't. And one of the things that I think that the Vote Blue #2 is a great educational piece, because my theory is that what people do, they've been so beaten down into the 2-party system, and good old Margaret Thatcher's from 40 years ago, there is no alternative, and the alternative will just screw you into what you don't want. That has been planted so much in people's heads that what I think they're doing locally, and I wonder if this was true in Maine as well, is that they go, who can win? And then they rank one of those who can win people #1. And then they think, well, who else might be okay? And then they rank them #2. So to really educate people about Vote Blue #2 helps them to understand the idea, I believe, that vote for what you really want. I feel as if people have been beaten out of the idea of going politically for what they really want. I mean, look at the anti-Trump thing, as we've talked about. It's anti instead of for. And ranked choice voting is about what you're for. So I just wonder, and if the media isn't covering you, then you're dumped into that bucket of can't win. No matter how good you are, no matter what your policies, no matter how well you do in the debates and stuff like that. So I don't know if there's a question in there, but please comment.
Thanks. Yes, it's exactly right. We were continually educating people. Ranked choice voting allows you to vote your values rather than your fears. You can make your #2 pick your fear pick, but your #1 pick is showing like, this is what I want. It was constant education. I just retired from 25 years of teaching, and I was constantly reminded that most people, research shows on average, to grasp a completely new concept, most people need 7 exposures to it. And we went in thinking, we've already had it for 2 years. Everyone gets ranked choice voting. They completely did not. And there's a new voter being born every minute, of course, too. So we were consciously working to educate people about, and the rank Lisa first and then Vote Blue #2 was definitely part of that strategy. But there was so much fear mongering. Democrats had a whispering campaign claiming like, well, if Collins loses in ranked choice voting, she'll take it to the Supreme Court. And now that the Supreme Court is packed with, Republicans, she'll win. And, a lot of behind the scenes crap. Finally, about a week before the election, Gideon's communications director told Politico they were telling people to rank us #2. That was the first we ever heard of it. And then someone told me, and it's hearsay, that I never could substantiate, that Gideon herself had spoken to a college in Maine and told them, go ahead and rank Lisa #2. But your point about the media is very well taken. One thing I learned from this election is bought media equals earned media, because we had the best press coordinator we could have. He was deeply connected with the Maine journalists. He was a longtime Green. He worked his butt off for us, and we could barely really ever get corporate press to even notice our existence. At the very, very, very end of the campaign, I mean, like literally the last week, we got in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and so forth. But even one of the most disillusioning things to me was these kind of.
Lisa, I'm going to jump in on you because we have less than 3 minutes left and we have 2 people still on stack. So do you want to take just 10 seconds and finish that thought, and then we'll go to Orlando?
Yes, I was quite surprised that Democracy Now! And Common Dreams completely ignored our campaign, and it shows they take a lot of money from Democrats. Over.
Thank you. Okay, Orlando, thank you for your patience. You are up, and then we have one final question for Lisa from Steve, but Orlando, you are on.
Yeah, I just want to applaud everyone and encourage everyone for running. But my question is for Angela. What gives you the motivation to continue to keep running, no matter what the racism or what not bias? What gives you the selective hearing tunnel vision to keep moving forward?
I really appreciate that question. I have no intention of continuing in electoral politics. I'm gonna go ahead on and say that. I've run 3 times. 3 is a number of completion. I'm done as far as that goes. Really looking forward to working with y'all and organizing spaces and this stuff on the ground. That's what I'm excited about. But to your question of what made me keep going, we have to. Nobody is gonna say what we're saying, and nobody is bringing what we're bringing. And the people now, more than any other time that I have ever seen in my adult life, are ready to hear everything that we are bringing them. So people gonna hate on you, people gonna do this, they're gonna do that, whatever. You know, I'm real good at flipping people off, and I got a mouth like a sewer. Trust and believe. You can get this work. But at the end of the day, you do it because when you are given a platform to raise your voice and make sure that the people you raising your voice for are in that room, when you are put in that place, you don't have a choice. It's yours to do.
Thank you. Oakland, California, got you.
All right, and thanks for that great question, Orlando. So our final question comes from Steve, and I believe it's for Lisa. Steve, you're up. Steve Breedlove.
Yes, thank you. Thank you also, Lisa, for mentioning the threat of legal challenges, because my only contacts in Maine had those concerns about the ranked choice. But my question, you had mentioned something specifically about kind of focusing your efforts in the more conservative second district. And I'm a firm believer, and I try and communicate that here to California Greens, that that is an untapped resource that ultimately a lot of our policies, land use, et cetera, could be very attractive to your kind of typical conservative voter. So I was just curious if you had any messaging, if your communications team had any focused messaging on typical or conventional conservative voters.
We really actually didn't, because the number of voters in Maine's second district is dwarfed by the number of voters in Maine's first district. So if you're going to win a statewide election, you're going to win it in the first district. Even though I live in the second district, I taught school there for 25 years. And I think I got a lot of my former students actually votes. They probably voted for Trump and me, just because they recognized my name and knew me. But no, we focused on the very progressive people that tend to live in the first district and tend to be young and economically distressed.